ScoobTober is back, and we have Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King that released on DVD back in 2008, and the first to be released under the Warner Premier label after folding of Warner Bros. Entertainment. Mystery Inc. has head to the annual Coolsville Halloween Carnival on Halloween night. While there, they encounter a resident magician called the Amazing Krudusky, voiced by Wayne Knight. He refuses to allow Shaggy and Scooby to attend their show after an incident that happened there. In retaliation, Shaggy and Scooby, who feel Halloween is the one night a year where they usually scares have to be fake, end up exposing Krudusky as a fraud during one of his acts, causing his audience to walk out, and Krudusky swears to get revenge on the duo, and so the gang are thrown out of the carnival and decide to go trick-or-treating instead. While Krudusky is in his tent, he reveals that his desire to become a real magician, so the fairy princess Willow enters the tent and causes Krudusky to notice an entry about the Goblin Scepter in the spellbook, which could be combined with fairy magic to control Halloween. So he gets an idea to obtain the scepter and rule the world with it. Willow decides to toy with him until she knocks herself out, thus letting him aware that she's a fairy, and decides to absorb her magic, thus becoming a real magician. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby last stop trick-or-treating in a spooky house, which claims to be a genuine magic shop. Once inside, a thunderstorm begins, frightening them. The perpetrator of the magician shop is Mr. Gibbles, reveals to the duo that magic does exist before breaking out a song. Eventually, the mad magician enters the shop, chasing Willow and capturing her, then turns Gibbles into a rabbit before stealing the magic equipment and leaving. Gibbles the rabbit explains what the magician's plan is to Shaggy and Scooby, and shows them a vision of what's to come, seeing their friends turn into monsters. Gibbles gets them on board the Grim Reaper Express, which will fly them to the spirit world, warning that they have to be returned home before sunrise or else they'll be trapped in the spirit world forever. Before they depart, the magician disguises them, turning them into monster versions of themselves. Meanwhile, the others are looking for Shaggy and Scooby back in the real world, and they see Krudusky conversing with a Goblin King who is voiced by Tim Curry, through a mirror, who reluctantly agrees to exchange his scepter for Princess Willow's at midnight. Seeing all this magic causes Velma to over-rationalize and fall unconscious, leaving Fred and Daphne to leave Velma in the mystery machine to rest while they set a trap for the Goblin King and Krudusky. In the magic world, Shaggy and Scooby disguise disappears as they encounter a werewolf. In order to get past, they have to convince him that they are collectively a werewolf. During the song Bump in the Night, Shaggy adds in the lyrics on how to get to the Goblin King's castle, causing all the monsters to run out of the bar. Two goblin henchman creatures attempt to capture them but are stopped by the jack-o'-lantern. The trio then encounter the headless horseman who is trying to rejoin with Jack. They escape the horseman and arrive at the witch's hut, where they meet the Grand Witch and her two fellow witches. They send Shaggy and Scooby on a ride on their broomsticks, flying towards the Goblin King castle, but are shot down by two henchmen from earlier. Crash landing in a small fairy village, Shaggy and Scooby find three fairies named Sparkplug, Honeybee, and Tiddlewinkles, who help them get inside the Goblin King's castle. Using a potion from the witches, Shaggy and Scooby disguise themselves as Daphne and Velma in order to get inside the castle. Only a few minutes from midnight, Shaggy and Scooby try to steal the scepter from the Goblin King, but are captured when the disguises wear off and are sent to the Tower's dungeon. Back in the mortal world, Krudusky and the Goblin King are almost done with their trade, when suddenly Fred's trap is released, but only manages to capture the Goblin King. Krudusky takes the scepter, turning himself into a new Goblin King, and turning the previous king into a goose. Krudusky and his new army settle to take over the world. He turns the Mystery Machine into a living monster called the Monstrous Machine to chase Fred, Daphne and Velma, and Willow. They are eventually captured by Krudusky using his new powers to turn Fred into a vampire, Daphne into a witch, and Velma into a werewolf. At this precise moment, Shaggy and Scooby and Jack arrive, having been saved from the dungeons before sunrise by the fairies and Broomy. Jack sacrifices himself so the staff was out of Krudusky's grasp, allowing Scooby to use it to break Krudusky's spell before returning it to the real Goblin King, who we find out is actually Princess Willow's father. He holds his daughter responsible for what's happened here, and punishes her to be grounded for 1 year. Mr. Gibbles finally arrives and brings Jack back to life with the help of the Goblin King, and Krudusky is taken prisoner for his crimes. Thus, he is taken to the magical world with the Goblin Army, Willow, Jack, Broomy, and Mr. Gibbles. Before departing, the Goblin King uses one final spell to erase the memories of the events that happened from Velma, Daphne and Fred's minds to keep the balance between the worlds. However, Scooby and Shaggy are allowed to keep their memories as they've proven their courage. Thus, this brings the movie to an end, and even though Fred, Daphne and Velma won't remember the events of what's happened tonight, at least Shaggy and Scooby have us, the audience, to remember them. Thanks for watching ScoobTober, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Remember to subscribe and join me tomorrow for another tale.